This is Gone Racin, VSiN's premier NASCAR betting podcast. Here are your hosts, former NASCAR driver Brendan Gaughan and Las Vegas Motor Speedway's Jeff Motley.
Welcome back into another edition of Gone Racing, our new digs, or our second week in our new digs here at the Circa Hotel Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Brendan, we had a big week this past weekend at Kansas. A familiar car in victory lane. Not necessarily a familiar driver.
I'd be interested to see if there's some stat that says that any car number or team has won that many races in that short of time with that many different drivers. The 45 team won with Kyle Busch 2 years ago. Kurt Busch 2 years ago before he got hurt. Then he got hurt. Bubba Wallace ran the number and got the win in the playoffs for him that year. And then now you have Tyler Reddick, Tyler Reddick, by the way, almost won the first race of the season at Kansas, comes back to win this one. So the 45 team, that Toyota group absolutely dominates Kansas Speedway.
Well, and we clearly know that the Toyotas in general are really good there. I mean, Bubba Wallace was one of the best cars on the track all day. He ran second almost the entire day. Denny Hamlin had the race won, and we had a late caution, Chris Buescher with a flat tire. And then you know how it all happens. Somebody's doing a 4-tire stop, somebody's doing 2 tires, somebody's taking no tires.
Hey, listen, and if I'm a crew chief of those guys, you go for it, baby. I mean, it's a green-white checker. You do what you can. You weren't running well. You take the shot. And a couple of them almost did well with it. If you look at that deal in the end, Eric Jones comes home with a third-place finish, which is fantastic for him. But some of those guys, you have to throw caution to the wind there. You have to try something. The big loser in that was Daniel Suarez, who had no tires and did not hang on to a good position.
Yeah, and some of those guys that took 4, Chase Elliott was another guy who was running top 3, and he ended up dropping back. But I tell you, to win the race, Tyler Reddick was a plus 900. Great return on that. He was plus 250 for a top 3. He won Group B at a plus 225. Driving Toyota, a plus 110. His only head-to-head matchup against Kyle Busch, it was a minus 145. So there was very little return there. It also locks Tyler Reddick into the next round of the playoffs, so he doesn't have to sweat out Bristol, because we all kind of know how Bristol can be. One guy can spin completely a whole straightaway ahead of you, and you could end up being in the mess there.
Listen, there are only 2 drivers right now that are happy going into Bristol that they don't have to deal with the calamity. I mean, then everybody else, and there's one guy right now that is sweating bullets, about to be the first guy ever to be the regular season champion. And now not that we have many data points on this, but the first time a regular season champion would get knocked. Now, remember last year, I think it was Chase Elliott came really close. He had a couple bad first rounds, ate up all his points. We talked about the same thing. But Martin right now is on the outside looking in.
Well, and one of the things that helped last year is we didn't have any playoff drivers win
the first 2 rounds.
Any of those early races. Well, Martin Truex Jr., I think it's perplexing to all of us right now that Martin Truex Jr. is sitting here on the outside of the playoffs looking in. He had a horrible race the weekend before at Darlington, and in this race, he blows a tire. I mean, literally, we're not even, 15 laps into the race?
3 laps.
3 laps into the race, he's blown a tire, which I still can't quite fathom. How does a tire not last more than 3 laps? It makes me, something had to be wrong with that tire before that race ever started.
He had to get a cut. I mean, to me, it had to be a cut. There's no way that there's nothing they try. There's no camber. They didn't try to over camber the tire. That had to be a cut tire. That's all that it could be. But talk about bad timing. Lap 3, Martin Truex Jr. goes out. So that was horrible. But a bunch of names in that top 10 again, Motley. Some great. This sport, healthy is this sport when you look at names in the top 10.
Absolutely. Denny Hamlin came in as a plus 130 for his top 3. You mentioned Eric Jones. Eric Jones, 40-1 for a top 3. And Eric Jones finishes 3rd. And they're going over to Toyota next year. He's not in a Toyota yet, but that team's going to be a Toyota team next year. Kyle Larson, our winner at Darlington, he came in 4th, and he was strong all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, Larson was probably another guy that the late pit stop, the caution with Chris Buescher didn't help. Joey Logano getting the top 5. Chase Elliott, another guy, ran top 3. A good portion of the day. He was there right at the very end. Kyle Busch, a strong run, and we're expecting a lot out of Kyle, I think, this weekend going to Bristol. Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski, another good run there for the RFK team, which also had Chris Buescher having a top 10 run until he cut the tire down at the very end of the race, and Alex Bowman a top 10. So no real surprises other than Eric Jones in that top 10, but it's a solid group.
Larson led the most laps on the day, 99 laps. So Larson was the strongest car if you go by the number of laps led. But Eric Jones, a great name on that list right there. Even Kyle Busch, good rebound, get himself just a solid finish to get back in the conversation so he's not in danger near that cut line right now. Bowman with finally at least a top 10 run, right? I mean, Bowman has been, kind of disappeared the last half of the season. Seabell's still strong, but man, that RFK team, I think this might be, I wish, I should have thought of this before the show started. I'd love to see when the last time Jack Roush had this many top 10s in a row in a season. It had to be over 10 years since he's had this many top 10s by his teams in a row.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right, because there were some pretty lean years in there in the Stenhouse years and even toward the end of Biffle's years and things like that. All right, well, we talked a little bit about Truex being on the outside. Let's take a look at our standings. We know that Larson and we know that Reddick, they're locked into the next round. Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Brad Keselowski are all in pretty good shape. But you start looking down that list, and you see the guy on the bubble right now is Kevin Harvick. He's 7 points ahead of Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. finishes 8th or 7th in stage 1, and Harvick gets no stage points. They're tied one stage into this race at Bristol. So that's pretty tight.
I look at this, and I go anywhere from Chris Buescher, who's in 9th, all the way down to Bubba Wallace.
Which is, that is a shocker. Just that one blown tire at the end of the race that Chris Buescher, who we thought was a guy who's in really good shape for the Final Four, is now, he's got to make sure. Now, granted, he did win this race last year, but only 13 points to the good.
Well, look, he finished 27th with that blown tire last week, so that hurt him, and you look at that. But you go Bubba Wallace, even Ricky Stenhouse at 41, that's not undoable for 21 points to Kevin Harvick, especially with a problem, especially with stage points, all those things. So I say from 9th to 14th, maybe even 15th, you've got 7 guys right there that literally are going to be sweating this whole race, counting points, counting cars, really figuring out what they got to do to make sure they make this playoff. And one guy who's got all the pressure in the world, Martin Truex Jr., all the playoff points he got, the regular season champion, if he makes it to the next round, he resets with all those points that he had the advantage of. He goes back to being your leader in the point. He'll go from 12th to 1st in one day if he makes it next week.
Like losing a 2-point basketball game with 4 timeouts left. Just to have all that sitting there in your hands and know that it could slip away. But you've also got to believe that team drivers like Truex, Harvick, Logano, the importance they're going to put, number one, on qualifying.
Yep.
And number two, guess what? When that flag drops, there's not going to be any of this, I'm going to take it easy.
No.
Because they've got to get every stage point they can. And at Bristol, we're running 15, 16-second laps. Those 125 laps are going to go by in a hurry.
Listen, at Bristol, it gets spread out right at the drop of the rag. By the time you get lap 10, the leader is looking at the back of the field in his windshield. It's right there. It is hard to do. It is hard to keep up there. And those guys, but when you look at those names, NASCAR champion Kevin Harvick, NASCAR champion Martin Truex Jr., NASCAR champion Joey Logano. Those are 3 guys that have been here, done that. And lest we forget Christopher Bell, the king of go or go home races. Last year he proved
walk-off.
Yeah, he proved that things clank when he walks, because he proved that he loves pressure. So you got all those guys right there. There's a lot of guys with confidence that are, one of them is going to be looking at the outside after this round.
And some guys that are probably not getting a lot of sleep this week. So it is Bristol. And we need to remind everybody, so for the last couple of years, this is the only race on the concrete at Bristol. So we really don't have any data points this year. The only guy that has won at Bristol on this surface in this car is Chris Buescher.
Yes.
And that was last fall. So looking at the schedule coming up, we talked about the fact we've got Bristol this week. Once we pass Bristol, the next trip, we're going into the next round of the playoffs. So we'll start that out in Fort Worth, Texas. Then we go to Talladega, and then we run the Roval in Charlotte before coming here to Las Vegas to start the 3rd round of the playoffs. I love that 2nd round, and I think once Bristol is over, we're really going to have a lot to talk about for that 2nd round of the playoffs.
Once again, I really hope NASCAR does not get talked into changing the cutoff rounds right now. I love that everybody, they're not afraid to change schedules, this and that, but when you go from Daytona to being a regular season cutoff race, which is a crapshoot that you love to use, then you end up with a Bristol night race as a cutoff race. Another race that is Calamity Jane Corner, can be so many things. Then you go to the Roval at, you know how I feel about that word.
You love that word, Roval.
But you go to the Roval at Charlotte, which another race that a lot of things can happen in. I think they got these cutoff races nailed pat. I think it's hard to want to change them. And then I love the mixture of races. 1.5 miles, super speedway, Roval. Then you go to the South Point 400. We kick off with 1.5 miles. You got to be good. It shows that you have to be well-rounded and I really like the way the schedule lays out for the playoffs.
Well, the main one we're talking about right now is going to be this cutoff race right here, which is Bristol. And take a quick look at the stats at Bristol. Kyle Busch, I mean, if he doesn't get in a wreck, Kyle Busch is probably going to win. 33 races, 8 wins, 14 top 5s. You raced at Bristol a few times.
I love
Can you
Bristol.
fathom 19 top 10s in 33 races at Bristol? Just knowing how quickly something bad can happen.
Listen, I'm jealous of that right there. I mean, that's just phenomenal what the Busch brothers. Remember, Kurt Busch was his stats. If we had them here, Kurt Busch's stats were fantastic at Bristol. So the Busch boys know how to get around that place. There's some guys down there. Chase Elliott, 50% top 10. Even Eric Jones, 50% top 10, and he's been running better. He's coming off 2 top 10s in a row right now with Darlington and Kansas. So he's got some stuff there. Chris Buescher, not quite as good, but he's got the win from last year. Kyle Larson, 9 top 10s in 14 races. There is some amazing numbers on guys here, along with the fact you got the Harvicks and the Bushes that just flat out, know how to get it done.
But a couple names we don't see on this list right here, Martin Truex Jr. and Bubba Wallace. The
We
two
do not.
guys that are sitting on the bubble, they don't have any wins here. They really don't have a strong showing here.
Martin Truex Jr., 2 top 10s, last 10 races, average finish 20.6.
Well, so Martin's going into this race at Bristol, and he probably doesn't have a great deal of confidence, I'm thinking. Do you?
Listen, right now, he's scratching his head going, oh my God, he's got all the pressure because this becomes a meme, right? If you not get knocked out the first round after being the regular season points champion with a 55-point lead, that's a meme.
We may even give you a little credit for maybe the most disappointing season that you called it before the season started. All right, we'll be back on Gone Racing. We'll start going over the odds to win and our top 3s.
This is Gone Racing, VSiN's premier NASCAR betting podcast. Here are your hosts, former NASCAR driver Brendan Gaughan and Las Vegas Motor Speedway's Jeff Motley.
We're back here talking all things the night race at Bristol. Brendan, they're so proud of the name of this race, they don't even put a number on it. It's not the Bass Pro Shops 500. It's just the Bass Pro Shops night race. And they've been doing that, I think, and used to call it, I think, just the night race at Bristol when they didn't have a sponsor on the race. So pretty cool. But anyway, we're going to start taking a look at the odds to win. Kyle Larson comes in as our favorite. I might be mildly surprised, but maybe not shocked there. He's a plus 550. William Byron and Denny Hamlin are both plus 750. Christopher Bell plus 800. Brad Keselowski plus 850. Chase Elliott 10-1. Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Chris Buescher all 12-1. Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain, Martin Truex Jr., Joey Logano all at 14. Tyler Reddick at 16. Bubba Wallace 28. And making an appearance on the first page this week, Ty Gibbs at 40-1. What jumps out at you there?
Well, I'll give you the stat for Kyle Larson. He's the only guy in a single digit in the last 10 races or the only guy in single digits average finish last 10 races. He's only got 8 data points because remember he missed a couple races, but he's 7 top 10s, 4 top 5s, and a win in the last 10 races. And the one that he didn't was a 19th place that he still led 60 laps in. So, he is really good here. 5th, 1st, 6th, 2nd, 9th, and 6th in the last 8, not counting the 19th. So there's a reason why he is the favorite. But I look at that Kyle Busch number. 6 top 5s in the last 10 races, got 3 wins in the last 10 races, and he's 12-1. He hasn't been very loud lately. We've talked about that fade, but where did they start the season that Kyle Busch was so good? At the Coliseum. Now, it's not
Short
anything,
track, right.
not anything like Bristol. Let's not, don't get me wrong, but a short track, that's where they came off the bus, with the new RCR deal, and he came out firing. So this could be a place at 12-1. That's a hell of a number on a Kyle Busch. I like that.
Well, and we talk about attitude, right?
Mm-hmm. He has great attitude
and
here.
he has a great attitude at Bristol. I mean, when a guy
even when he wins,
in,
he says, I hate this car, I hate you, I hate this, but he loves Bristol.
And that's the thing. He's got 8 wins there. So I agree with you, 12-1. And the other guy is, like we just said a minute ago, the only guy that's won on this surface in this car is Chris Buescher, who's been one of the hottest drivers. And look, he was running top 10 last week. So let's discount where he finished last week. He's 12-1.
No believers in Chris Buescher still. I mean, you got to look. Chris Buescher won the race last year, led 100, didn't just win the race last year. Remember, not playoff guy. RFK last year, much different year than this year, right? well, we're not that strong, went and led 169 laps. The guy who led the most laps. He finished 7th in stage 1, 169 laps, and you got him right now sitting here at 12 to 1. I'm sorry. There's two numbers right there that I might bet winners this week just because of that.
Well, and then one other name that jumps out at me on the very beginning of the board there, Tyler Reddick at 16 to 1. You know, Tyler Reddick, here's a guy who he won last week. We've talked about how these are kind of his kind of racetracks. You know, Reddick he's run well here in every other series that he's been in, and we know the Toyotas are going to probably run well here because they always do. I just think that's a really, really nice return on Tyler Reddick. Honestly, I'd probably have him up there close to where Brad Keselowski is at plus 850 as opposed to being 16 to 1, but that's just me.
I don't discount that. I mean, Tyler, and right now Reddick is no pressure, is fast. He's been fast everywhere the last.
He's just going for bonus points now.
Yeah.
That's what matters to him is bonus points. All right, let's take a look at our longer shots this race coming up here in Bristol. We got Alex Bowman at 55 to 1, Eric Jones, who just keeps finishing well, 60 to 1, Daniel Suarez and Eric Almirola at 90. Stenhouse and McDowell, a couple of playoff drivers, along with Chase Briscoe at 100 to 1. Ryan Preece, Allmendinger at 150. Haley Hocevar and Austin Dillon, big now, 250. And then there's some bigger
there's some big ones
numbers
behind
on
that,
other guys.
but still, I mean, Austin Dillon way down there behind Carson Hocevar. I mean, same odd, but I mean, really, Ryan? I mean, that just surprises me. Not that I think he's going to win the race. Sorry, Austin. But still, nothing on this back page really. The only one maybe that gets me going to say, rather talk about him in the top threes is that Eric Jones stat we started the show with, where Eric Jones, 10 races, 5 top 5s, 4 top 10s, average finish of 13.3 last 10 races. So here's a guy that he's finished second here in the past. Granted, it was with Gibbs, but got a 5th place here, got a 3rd place here, got another 5th place. Here's a guy pretty good here.
Yeah, I think Suarez is another guy that it's a really big number on Daniel. I know he hasn't won this year, but Daniel seems fairly comfortable when he goes to some of these short tracks and runs fairly well, but I guess we'll see. Okay, let's take a look at our top threes. Kyle Larson comes in as our favorite there at plus 160. William Byron and Denny Hamlin are both plus 210. Christopher Bell at plus 225. Brad Keselowski 250. Elliott 275. Busch 350 along with Harvick and Buescher. Blaney, Chastain, Truex, and Logano all at 400. Reddick at 450. Bubba at 800. And Ty Gibbs at 12 to 1.
I lock right back in those same two. Chris Buescher at 350. I mean, here's a guy that won last year. He was fast last week at Kansas. He's been fast. Arguably the hottest guy coming into the playoffs. And you're telling me he's 350? That's a great return. I'm intrigued by the Bubba Wallace number there, just because of how well he's been running lately. I think the Bubba has really matured a lot in the last little bit. I think Tyler Reddick has helped him a lot. I think Kurt Busch, as a driver coach / mentor over there, has helped, and it's shown lately. So that 800 on Bubba Wallace, and even that Ty Gibbs number. Remember, the kid just missed the playoffs, having a good rookie season. I think that he could snap off a top 3 here because he won this in Xfinity at least once that I can remember off the top of my head. So I like those two numbers at the bottom of the page.
You know, and I think a couple of guys here that I probably wouldn't discount because I think they'll run well here are those two Penske cars there of Blaney and Logano. Blaney and Logano, he's had his moments at Bristol where he's been pretty good.
He's been lately not bad. 4 top 10s, 3 top 5s, so not terrible lately. But Logano did win here. Did used to do really well here. He does like this place. So
and he's plus 400. Yeah. I mean there's some real value I think there on Joey Logano. I just don't think he should be discounted. You know, we've really kind of talked about a lot of what we talked about been the Toyota guys. Mm-hmm. You know, and then Kyle Busch along with obviously Larson. So
we're not naming, and we haven't said Ross Chastain's name. Ross Chastain.
I think my issue with Chastain is he just hasn't been that strong this year too, and he sometimes gets himself into trouble. And Bristol, that's one track where.
Well, that's one track where people get even with him, and we've seen that at this track. People have gotten even with Ross here at Bristol in the past. This is a place that his personality has not paid dividends when it comes to Bristol.
Well, and maybe that's one thing we need going into this race. We need a scorecard, or as Deion Sanders, Coach Prime likes to say, I keep receipts. We need to know who's keeping receipts this weekend, because this, as you say, is the weekend that you tend to redeem those receipts.
You tend to cash in a lot of tickets on this one, so it definitely happens. Let's just say.
All right, well, let's take a look at our longer shots for top threes here. Alex Bowman comes in at 14-1. Eric Jones is 16-1. Daniel Suarez, Eric Almirola at 20. Stenhouse, McDowell, and Briscoe at 25. Priest and Allmendinger at 40. Haley, Hocevar, Dillon, and Burton all at 60. Cindric and at 100. Corey LaJoie at 130, and Ty Dillon 250.
Maybe Alex Bowman, Eric Jones again. I harped the dead horse, right? I mean, Eric Jones we're talking about a lot. Alex Bowman, couple good runs here. Last 8 races, 2 top 5s, got a 5th and got a 5th. Not terrible, but once again, he's the guy that's kind of disappeared as of late. But when Alex Bowman shows back up on the scene, Alex Bowman shows up, right? I mean, normally when all of a sudden we talk about Alex Bowman again, it's like, oh my God, Alex Bowman ripped off 2 wins in a row. And then you don't talk about him for 3 weeks. So it's 3 months. So that one kind of gets me there. Really, that's it on this page that kind of gets me excited is Eric Jones and Alex Bowman. The Eric Jones 16-1, I think that could happen.
Well, and it seems like, every week we've got somebody that's, now granted, I say we've got every week we got somebody surprising us. It's really kind of been Eric Jones has been the guy that's been surprising us on most of these weeks. But, we've had, like you mentioned, Bowman. Bowman's had some good runs. Problem with Bowman, he hasn't had good finishes. And also you got to look at, okay, I know they haven't been great at Bristol, but Ricky Stenhouse and Michael McDowell, those guys don't want to be one and dones in the playoffs. And those guys are going to, look, I'm not saying they're going to go out there and win, but I just got to believe you're going to get absolutely their best effort this week.
And look, Michael McDowell's crew chief, how many times has he proven this year that this man is got guts and is not afraid to roll the dice and take chances and do these things? So McDowell's kind of a wild card down there at that 25-1. Here's the deal. At 25-1 for a top 3, I'd love to look at Michael McDowell. We don't do it here, of course, on Gone Racin'. But, DraftKings does have, and a lot of the books in town do have top 10, top 5. I would love to see a Michael McDowell or Ricky Stenhouse Jr. top 10, top 5 number, because if they're 25-1 here, they may still be 8, 9, maybe even 10-1 on a top 10 number. Pretty good odds for that.
Right. I just think if you're going in and you got the mentality of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. or Michael McDowell, finishing top 10 is probably not going to be good enough. Now, and then like we talked about earlier in the show, though, one thing we do know they're going to be is very, very aggressive from the start of the race, because these stage points are going to mean so much. And McDowell's a guy who can manage that.
They've proved it. They've done it.
He's done a lot.
Proof's in the pudding on that.
Stenhouse sometimes gets himself in a little bit of trouble.
No, Stenhouse? No. No.
All right, we'll be back on Gone Racing very shortly, and we will start talking about our driver head-to-heads and our group matchups.
This is Gone Racing, VSiN's premier NASCAR betting podcast. Here are your hosts, former NASCAR driver Brendan Gaughan and Las Vegas Motor Speedway's Jeff Motley.
Want to rewatch any part of today's show or any past show? Check out the Gone Racing podcast. It's free and available now at VSiN.com/podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We give you all the latest news, odds, and everything you need to know before you head to the betting counter for each NASCAR Cup Series race. And while you're there, catch up on all the other VSiN shows as well. That's VSiN.com/podcasts. Okay, Jeff Motley, Brendan Gaughan, or the promo just told you that.
Put them goggles back on there.
Yeah, put my goggles back on here. I got to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar now here. I'm dating myself. Half the people probably remember Kareem.
Rex Specs. Kurt Rambis, baby. Come on.
Kurt Rambis. Yeah. But if you're watching that Winning Time on HBO, then, which is a great show, by the way, you see a lot of Kareem and Kurt Rambis and all those guys. And
Kurt Rambis and the Specs, baby. He was the king of the Rex Specs back then.
The Showtime Lakers. Oh yeah. Gotta love Kurt Rambis. But all right, it's Bristol night race, the Bass Pro Shops night race at Bristol. That's our sister track, Speedway Motorsports. So I got to get their sponsor love in there a little bit. So looking at our driver head-to-heads, boy, they just don't blow me away this week, Brendan. But we got a few plus lines there. Bell's a plus 110 against Hamlin, and he's plus 110 against Larson, and Elliott's 110 against Larson. There's some evens, but I feel like I'm looking at Talladega and Daytona here, not not Bristol.
We only got 6 to choose from this week, where normally we have 9 on them. And Westgate, we appreciate them always, getting the odds up for us so early. So it's sometimes tough for us to get, kind of fun choices on picks, but really not a lot of fun there. I mean, Christopher Bell, he's up against Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson. Okay. The Denny Hamlin even money versus Kyle Larson, that to me, it's just Denny. The problem is Denny's had, you never know what Denny's going to show up on pit road every week. So there's not a whole lot of fun on the head-to-heads, and it bums me out because I've been knocking the head-to-heads out of the park this year and just chipping away at the season, and I just don't feel any love in the head-to-heads for me this week.
Yeah, I mean, the only one I see that I might feel a little bit pretty good about maybe is Christopher Bell head-to-head against Brad Keselowski on an even line, but again, I'm not going to touch these. It just doesn't do much for me. So let's just get to the groups. We talked enough about those, so on to the groups we go. We're going to take a look at Group A. Kyle Larson is the favorite here at a plus 250. Denny Hamlin comes in plus 270. William Byron and Brad Keselowski plus 275. Brad Keselowski has not won a race in how many years now? 2 years? And he is in Group A?
And I'm looking at this going, okay, hold on. Christopher Bell, one of the hottest guys in the sport, the guy who drives for Brad Keselowski, won 3 races right before the playoff on 3 different style tracks, finished, amazing here, won this race last year. He's in Group B. Brad Keselowski's in Group A. I think somebody might be off a little bit somewhere. I can take that down to a 3-man horse race right there. I'm sorry, I don't disbelieve in Brad, but you take that to a Byron, Larson, and Hamlin, and then it becomes, well, who do I give the nod to? I like Kyle Larson heavy in that group.
Well, and I guess that's a good thing since you're kicking our butts in the standings, because I'm with you totally. I mean, if Kyle Larson was coming in there at plus 175 or plus 185, then I might be like, well, I don't know if I'm going to go down that route. But plus 250 on Kyle Larson, Brennan, you read off the stats how dominant he's been here at Bristol. So I think at a plus 250, I'm with you. Love Kyle Larson in Group A.
Yeah, it's because I can take Brad out right off the bat. It's 3-man horse race. Byron's pretty good. Don't get me wrong on Byron. Byron's got 2 third-place finishes last 2 races, so Byron's up there, but I still like Larson at 250 there.
So now when we look at Group B, we can make a case that every guy that's in Group B could be in Group A. We'll take a look right off the top. Christopher Bell and Chase Elliott are the co-favorites at plus 230. But then Chris Buescher, we mentioned the fact he won this race last year, is plus 315. And Kyle Busch, he of the 8 wins and 19 top 10s and 15 top 5s and 33 starts at Bristol, a plus 315 in Group B. Now, I'm not hedging how I feel, but those 2 315s are pretty good numbers.
We talk about enticement, right? They're trying to entice us here. Now, Christopher Bell, in the race last year, 2nd in Stage 1, 1st in Stage 2, 143 laps led.
And Mr. Walkoff.
And Mr. Walkoff. So, I mean, I don't dislike the C. Bell pick, but 315 on Chris Buescher, who won the race last year, who's been super hot going into the playoffs, peaking at the right time, or Kyle Busch with those amazing stats. I like the 2 dogs in this one. Hell, I can put 1 unit on each of them. I'm still going to end up ahead.
Right. If either one of those guys wins the group, I'm with you. I think those are huge numbers, and really like Kyle Busch and Chris Buescher in that group there. All right, Group C, Ryan Blaney comes in as a favorite here at plus 265. Tyler Reddick, Martin Truex Jr., and Ross Chastain all come in at plus 270. Brendan, I'm just going to jump right in there and tell you that I like one guy way more than I do the other 3, and he's not even the favorite in this group. Tyler Reddick, to me, in this group, I just love the Tyler Reddick bet right here.
Look, Martin Truex Jr. has not been good here lately. I mean, I started the show, 2 top 10s, 10 races, average finish 20.6, 36th, 7th, 24th, 20th, 13th, 17th, 30th, 30th, 21st. Not Martin Truex's favorite place. Ross Chastain, another guy that when he shows up in a big way, but hasn't been showing up lately. I really like that Reddick bet. In this group, he's a guy that arguably could be in Group A. He's down in Group C. That's like a couple weeks ago we talked. We had like Chase Elliott or somebody down in Group C or D, and we're like, well, how can you not pick Kyle Busch or Chase Elliott in Group C? Tyler Reddick, how can you not pick him in Group C?
Yeah, and we know the Toyotas are strong here, and you mentioned the fact that Truex, this just isn't his favorite place. I agree that he's desperate, but I think sometimes when you get the guy who can kind of throw caution to the wind, I like that guy.
Yeah,
and that's what Tyler Reddick can do right now. All right, Group D, we got a heavy favorite in Joey Logano at plus 175, Bubba Wallace at plus 285, and then Ty Gibbs and Alex Bowman both coming in at plus 330. Now, you're talking about a group that is spread out with some enticement in here. There's some enticement in this group.
Yeah, and Logano being the heavy favorite is that for a reason. Alex Bowman is my, once again, it's so tough to read Alex Bowman. Ty Gibbs was in this race last year, crashed out, finished 35th. So tough to get a read on Ty Gibbs on the number of starts because he doesn't have many. So tough to read him. Bowman, once again, is it time for Bowman to start? Bowman the showman, is he coming back? Or do we got this Bowman we've had right now? I told you, I kind of like Bubba a little bit, but you know what? I'd still bet Logano at 175. Yeah. Problem is, 175, I can get a better number for his top three.
Well, and I think that's my holdup here. I mean, I think Logano, there's a reason he's the favorite. I think Logano's the best one in the group. But this is a group that I'm just not going to touch only because I don't like the plus 175 number. Bowman, to me, is the other guy that I think, and like you just said, Brendan, I mean, Bowman is so unpredictable.
When he shows up, he should be Group A. I mean, when he shows up, he is Alex Bowman, Group A Alex Bowman, and amazing and fantastic. When he doesn't show up, he's Alex Bowman, Group D. And so it's, you just don't know what he's going to get, so it's too tough for me. We always have the one group that we look at and say, I'm not touching. Here's my group.
And I'm with you on that. We're agreeing on a lot today.
This is not good.
I mean, that just means we're jinxing everybody out here, which is usually what happens.
Yes, it is.
When Brendan and I agree. All right, we're taking a look at Group E here. Eric Almirola, Eric Jones, and Daniel Suarez all come in at plus 255, and Chase Briscoe at plus 310. And finally, a week that I don't think Chase Briscoe is the guy to beat in a group right here. I know there's three guys tied at the top, but man, we like to talk about what have you done for me lately, and the only guy in this group is Eric Jones that has done something lately.
Now, before the last 3 weeks, we were not talking much about Eric Jones or the Legacy Motor Club team. Now I look at this and go, well, Eric Jones pretty good, and I gave you the stats. He's pretty darn good here. But there's one that's tough on that. Chase Briscoe has been kind of our moneymaker in Group F lately, and bummer he's not in Group F this week because putting him in this group. But Chase Briscoe, 14th and 13th. This is what makes sports betting so great for NASCAR. Do you care normally who finishes 13th or 14th in a race?
Absolutely not. And nor do you care where Eric Almirola, Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez, or Chase Briscoe finish most of the time.
But last week, we lost our Group F bet with Chase Briscoe to Ryan Preece.
By one position.
14th and 15th position. So you look at this, and this is what I get so mad that the television networks don't spend more time focusing on the gambling, because it's like, dude, you could have had a hell of a battle showing Briscoe and Preece running for that 14th place finish, going, man, there's money on that.
Well, no question. And you and I have been preaching to the choir on that one.
Yeah.
All right,
I like Eric Jones.
Quick look at our Group F. Michael McDowell is a favorite at plus 265, along with Stenhouse and Allmendinger. Dylan comes in at plus 275. I like McDowell here.
I don't dislike McDowell, but he just, I don't know. I circled Austin Dillon because that's the best team in this group. If you look at the team, right? RCR is the strongest team that's right there in Group F. That's the only reason I'm throwing it to Austin Dillon.
I guess I think Mike McDowell's a rather popular driver amongst the other drivers. He is a playoff guy. I don't think guys will give him a lot of trouble if he's a little faster. I think they might let him go. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Okay, we'll be back on Gone Racing. We'll have our final segment. We'll have manufacturers and give you our picks.
This is Gone Racing, VSiN's premier NASCAR betting podcast. Here are your hosts, former NASCAR driver Brendan Gaughan and Las Vegas Motor Speedway's Jeff Motley.
Well, it's our final segment for today, talking about the Bass Pro Shops night race at Bristol. We've got Wyatt in our ear. He's
good. Very good.
Very clever in our ear. I think he's just trying to trip us up, is what he's really trying to do.
It's not tough to trip up the professionally unprofessional.
That's true.
I mean, we don't need a lot of help.
But we've made it through this whole show without doing something unprofessional. So we've got one segment to go.
Listen,
I just jinxed it, or am I going to?
I think we just.
The desk isn't wood, so I'm not really knocking on wood.
My head thing. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
It works.
So, all right, our last bet for this week is our manufacturer props. And we see a closer group here than we've seen. Ford's getting a little bit more love than we're used to. I'm not really sure who the love's going to, if it's Joey Logano or Kevin Harvick. But anyway.
Chris Buescher or Brad Keselowski in Group A for some reason.
So anyway, Chevy's a plus 125. Toyota and Ford are plus 210. Maybe not a lot of value here, other than I'm a little surprised Toyota's plus 210, knowing that Hamlin and Reddick in particular, I think those two guys, and Christopher Bell, shouldn't leave him out, could be very tough here.
Yeah, no, I like that Toyota 210 number a lot. The Chevys I like, but right now I can take out two of our favorite Chevys. Always been Chase Elliott and any of the Hendrick Chevys, and right now two of them aren't running really well. So you're really relying on Kyle Larson. As just really just kind of a one-man show. Kyle Busch, maybe. Kyle Larson is your main Chevy guy. So I think the Toyota actually is a great number. I think it should be flip-flopped almost.
Well, and I think it's, like I said, I think it's one throw a blanket over them, so it's really kind of hard to have a favorite here. Something you just said kind of reminded me of something.
Okay.
There's somebody we have not even mentioned his name on this show today. Not one time has his name been mentioned this week. And this is a guy who's won more races than anybody in the entire series this year.
And I just poo-pooed him as a Chevrolet. I named him one-man army.
Yeah. So is William Byron, do we think that, well, gosh, his best days are behind him? I mean, he's in great position to move on, and he's going to carry a lot of bonus points with him. But is Byron just riding around collecting points? And
people were ready to hand him the trophy, halfway through the regular season. And at Bristol, he's got 3 top 10s, 2 top 5s. But the difference is they both come in the last 2 races. And, Jeff, your favorite thing is, what have you done for me lately? Third in the last 2 races. So there's something to be said about that. He finished.
And in fact, we haven't even talked about him. It's amazing.
No.
We never even brought his name up.
Yeah, good point.
So
good point.
Okay, well, speaking of running for the championship, we can take a look at our championship odds, and we kind of get our little comparison from where we were going into the playoffs to where we are now, and kind of looking at the whole deal. Obviously, one guy who made a big leap last week was Tyler Reddick. We talked about he was a guy at 18-1,
but still 11-1.
Still 11-1. Still 11-1, and maybe, but which surprises me, knowing we've got a road course coming up in the next round of the playoffs, and we know how good he is on road courses. So that one does surprise me a little bit. We don't really see, I don't think, a ton of movement. It's at least not movement to the good side.
There's 3 that I like on this right now. Martin Truex Jr. is plus 800. He's had a bad round. Okay, Martin Truex Jr. makes it through this next round.
He was the favorite going in.
He gets his 55 points back. So Martin Truex Jr. plus 800, that's the highest he's going to be, because once he makes it the next round, he's going to drop way back down. Tyler Reddick, 11-1, Chris Buescher, 12-1, and Christopher Bell right there at 16-1. Those are 3 that I really do like right now as big odds that those are going to drop as we get closer to the playoffs.
And the guy who will see a dramatic difference if he makes it into the next round, Bubba Wallace was 35-1 when the playoffs started. He's 75-1 now, but he's not that many points out of sneaking into the playoffs. So if he is able to sneak into the playoffs, you're going to see that 75-1 number drop all the way back down, probably to 35-1.
Yep, I'm with you.
All right. Well, last week, Brendan,
I'm going to claim I haven't had many offers yet this season. And I'm going to claim new digs. I wasn't used to looking at just all new stuff. I don't got Wyatt right here. I'm looking through glass. We got the Cirque in the back. It had me off. But it's not going to be off 2 weeks in a row, I'm telling you.
Well, just remember, Joe DiMaggio got a hit in 56 straight games, and then he went 0 for 4. Everybody's got to go 0 for 4 at some point. 0 for 5 in your case here. So we had a couple winners last week. The pit crew came in with a winner, getting Joey Logano to win his group. Congratulations to the pit crew. It's so great that the pit crew, we don't have Wyatt here defending himself on camera now.
There ain't much to defend on this one.
Driving him crazy.
They're still minus 30. I think they're behind where I was last year now at this point.
Yeah, and my only win last week was getting Joey Logano over Ryan Blaney. So at least it was Joey Logano who was giving wins to us, which unfortunately dropped me down to where I have that little
back in the
minus number right beside my name again.
Who's What's that? How many positive am I?
Yeah, 40.
These cameras are kind of in my way. What's the positive read?
I'll read it for you. 40.7.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
40 units. 40 units. Got it.
Jeez,
Okay.
I think we need to add the last 2 years together and see where
I'm still positive. I'm positive probably 20 at that point.
You'd be barely positive, I think, from after last year. I don't know. And I'm mumbling because I'm disappointed that I'm so far behind you is what I'm doing. Okay, let's get into our picks for this week. And our fabulous pit crew, they get to go first because they are last. And what's that? That would mean worst is first. Worst is first.
Worst
Okay.
is first.
So they've got Chase Elliott over Kyle Larson at a plus 110. Kyle Busch to finish in the top 3 at a plus 350. Martin Truex Jr. going for Truex there at plus 270 in Group C. Eric Jones in Group E and Michael McDowell in Group F, which will come as a little disappointment to me because we're going to have some head-to-heads. Actually, we're going to be in agreement on some of these with the pit crew. I'm going to go Tyler Reddick for a top 3 at plus 450. And the rest of my picks will be in the groups. I'm going Kyle Larson at plus 250 to win Group A. I like Tyler Reddick in Group C, so we're going to go head-to-head with the pit crew there on Martin Truex Jr. But I do like the Eric Jones pick in Group E, and I like the Michael McDowell pick in Group F.
All right. I don't dislike some of these that we're throwing out. I mean, the Kyle Busch top 3 from the pit crew, I think it's very doable. I do like that. Unfortunately, I think we're going to give a jinx to somebody here.
Oh, boy.
And so that's kind of the bummer. Now, last week, do you remember last week I said, we're going to jinx Chase Briscoe. I think I want to go Priest. Priest is a tough guy, the eyes, the whole tough guy thing. And I said, nope, sticking with Briscoe. And then when the race ended, I looked at the finish and I go, I knew I should have gone Priest. And I said I was going to be mad about it, and I was. This week, I
may have gotten a text from you with a bad word in it.
Yeah. I had a head-to-head circled, Christopher Bell, but I'm taking it off the board with that one. Off the board. I'm going Group B with Chris Buescher. Buescher cashes tickets. He's in Group B. He's plus 315. I'm just hoping that he has enough to cover Kyle Busch right there. I'm going Group C with Tyler Reddick. I'm going head-to-head with the pit crew. I think that I know Martin's going to go swing and do great and blah, 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 but I think that Tyler Reddick is just running too well. Sticking in the groups, I got Group E with Eric Jones. That's where the jinx comes in. I do like him. I got Group F with Austin Dillon. After we talked, I did some looking on the stats. He is average finish of 5 spaces higher than all 3 other guys in the group. So I like that one. And then my last pick, this is why I canceled out the even money pick with Christopher Bell, Toyota plus 210. I think the Toyotas are very, very strong right now. And looking at how they finished last year with this new car, they also are very strong last year with the number of laps led by Christopher Bell and what they were able to do there. So will you be sending the text to Eric Jones with apologies before the race ever even starts, since he's the one who jinxed? Well, I don't think he's going to show up to the Brendan Gaughan Celebrity Blackjack Tournament after if he hits the jinx. So I think we're in trouble.
Maybe if we pick him, he will show up for the Brendan Gaughan Celebrity Blackjack Tournament, which
we picked him.
Which everyone should attend on Thursday night, October 12th, at the South Point, leading into the Las Vegas race, the Brendan Gaughan Celebrity Blackjack Tournament.
I did not name it, by the way. I just want that known. Not my choice of names. Just throw that out.
I may have had something to do with it because I knew if we put his name on it, he had to get us the drivers. But I think we've got Kevin Harvick.
So far, we got
Rick Allen,
Kevin Harvick,
Rusty Wallace is going to be there.
We got a couple that are real close. We should know by the end of the week.
And we may have a legendary Vegas Golden Knight as a possibility as a player. We're not.
See, here's the fun thing about it, though. What I tell everybody, I only call the guys I like, and the guys I like in the sport are dwindling because my guys are going away. So you can imagine there's very few guys left that I like. So those names are the ones that are going to be there.
Yeah, in 5 years we won't be able to have a tournament because
I won't know anybody anymore.
Brendan won't know anybody anymore. Well, Brendan, we got about a minute left. Talk to us about Bristol. I mean, how did you love it? Did you hate it?
Loved it. Absolutely love Bristol. Bristol is, I'm telling you, the first time I went there, we call it the Great Coliseum. I'm telling you, you walk through that tunnel, Motley, you look up, the grandstands are at 35, 40 degrees, the high bank half mile. I swear I think a drunk guy can fall from the top and hit the racetrack. It's that much fun. It's that wild. Everything about it, Jeff, is the best.
Well, and I think if there is a bucket list place to go to watch a race.
And this race is it.
And this is it. You're right. The night race at Bristol, on the concrete, the beating, the banging, the huge crowds we get there. Yeah, I'm excited to see this race on Saturday night.
Saturday night. Remember, don't forget Saturday night.
It's a Saturday night race. Okay, that'll do it for us on Gone Racing this week. Breaking down all things Bristol. Next week we'll be back to talk about Bristol and kick her off the second round of the playoffs.